Welcome back to the Own It Show. I am so happy and grateful to be here with all of you and our special guest today, Helen, and we're going to be talking about how to own your story. So please, Helen, please introduce yourself and tell us more about you.
Hello, so good to be here with all of you today. So I am a storyteller and a communication coach, and that's kind of a glorified way of saying I'm a copywriter. But I think there's a lot of ways that we can write copy that are so much more engaging, and that's what we're going to talk about today.
Amazing. And I'm really grateful to have your zone of genius to share on your tips because storytelling is one of the greatest ways to connect. And it's something that we don't use often. So when we can use it to increase our communication and our sales, it helps everyone win-win so that we can get the results that we're looking for. So just
Absolutely.
give me a little rundown. How did you end up becoming a storytelling coach?
So that's a fun story. So I started into the entrepreneur field reluctantly when I was a little bit older in life, and started with network marketing and had to kind of discover what my own story was within that larger brand because I didn't resonate with a lot of the things. And so kind of figuring out what my story was, there was this realization that other people needed to understand their story and they needed to understand the power of story. And so the first thing I did was host this a community event, basically I've lost the word for it, a workshop where I got a bunch of ladies together in my community, and we hosted an event called Brand Aid. And it was the idea of kind of owning your brand. And I talked about story and kind of my journey. And that just really led me to really want to dig into that deeper. And as I found that there was more and more of a need for that, I moved further and further away from the network marketing business and more towards copy and sales. And one of my great core values is harmony. And so I really believe very much in enhancing communication with people at all levels, just makes the world a better place. And so it was just a real natural fit for me to just continue being pulled towards that.
I love it. And communication is one of the things that it's not taught in school. It's not commonly talked about. And it's one of the keys to actually have a joyful life, to be able to communicate effectively with people, to get the desired outcome that leaves everybody with an impression of increase, which isn't usually how we communicate. We usually communicate with fear in mind and angrily express ourselves. So if people just had more access to language and ways to express themselves and communicate safely, I think the
Yes.
world would be a happier, and better place.
Yeah. And I think one of the keys that I like to share with people around communication is not the effectiveness of what you say. It's the effectiveness of what is heard. And
Mm.
that's such a different switch, especially in terms of sales and entrepreneurship. People want to have this real polished presentation, and that's not necessarily what resonates with people. It's how they hear what you have to say. And, you know, if you feel authentic, if you sometimes make a mistake and bumble through a presentation, there's more empathy for you than if you were just polished and beautiful, right? So it's very much the receiving end than the presenting side of things that people don't always necessarily understand around communication.
Absolutely. And I had a mentor once tell me it's most important how it lands, they call it, right? How it's
Yes,
received. So getting your
absolutely.
point across is lovely, and having it received and land well with the other person so that it's, you not only did you get it across, but everyone's left with that impression of increase and you get to that desired outcome without all the drama. Communication can be such a healing tool. And we're going to talk about how we use that and storytelling in business today so that we can all scale and grow and help so many more people. But I just really wanted to talk about, just note how important communication is in getting what you want, but also leaving people feeling good. So I just want to, I'm a bookworm. So do you have I know you have a designation and you teach in communication, but do you have a favorite book? If somebody was like, I want to level up my access to communication and quality of life. The first one that comes to mind for me is How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yes, I think that's a great one. I also, because I'm a storyteller, I love books that are story based. So there's a really great, oh my goodness, I'm going to forget the name of it right now. Yeah, isn't that terrible? If I turn around and find it, it's probably in my library behind me.
That's
Some of my favorite books are those that they're almost told in a story form, and you learn the lesson as you're kind of engaged in that story, right?
like The Alchemist, which is
I was just going to say The Alchemist is a great one. There's another one that's really, it's tied to the story of Christianity, and I'm trying to think of what that one is too.
Power of
That's a really great,
Awareness.
no, boy, that's terrible. I should have had all of these tips written down. Anyways, I love those.
Put you on the spot. We'll come back to you on that book recommendation. But yeah, Alchemist
I'll
is
try and think of it as we're going along.
another one that comes to me on just like telling through storybooks like that I love is A Leader Without a Title by Robin Sharma.
Yes, yes, that's an interesting one. It's a funny thing. I fully appreciate Robin Sharma for who he is, and I can read his books, but I can't. I've tried different times to listen to him as a presenter, and I don't know if I have ADD or he has ADD, but I can't follow his conversation as in a presentation the same way that I can in his
In his
works. But
book.
I've read most of his books, and I love that he teaches through story as well. Yeah.
Yes, yes. The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari I have not read yet. I've only done The Leader Without a Title, but that The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari is on my list. And I
Yeah,
like Audible, so those work for me. And I
me
love,
too.
yeah. So okay, so let's dive into those tips. So tip number one, storytelling as part of the sales conversation. Let's talk about that.
Sure. So I want to start first of all with the understanding. I think first for people with storytelling is understanding your own story, because we really need to show up authentically, especially as entrepreneurs. So you need to know your story. You need to know what your brand is, and you need to be able to recognize that when you're sharing stories in a sales presentation, on social media, wherever that may be, that it needs to come from that place of authenticity within you. That's what makes the story connection. When you understand who you are in your story and your story brand, that's what attracts the audience to you, because you are fully engaged and fully embracing who you are. So when you tell stories in a sales conversation, a couple of things happen. First of all, there is an amygdala response in the brain. I geek out on this science stuff a little bit. When we're presented with a sale, or when we're meeting somebody, even at networking, and we're like, oh, what's this person going to sell me? Our brains automatically go back to that caveman impulse of, I need to protect you from something scary here. And the idea of change or buying something or being presented with a new idea is scary to the brain. So our amygdala kind of takes over, and that immediately shuts down the sale, right? Because we're not listening, we're protecting ourselves, and we don't do it on purpose, but we do it. So what happens when you tell a story in a sales presentation is it takes over that amygdala response, and it actually shoots oxytocin into your system, and it gives you this pleasure response, and it makes you more trusting, and it makes you more capable of moving into action. And stories also create this empathy and this connection. So there's actually a neural pathway between the storyteller and the person who's receiving the story. So whether it's reading the story, watching a movie, listening to a sales conversation, if you feel connected to that person, and that's why the authenticity is so important, you will actually have this empathic reaction and want to trust the person, want to help the person, want the sale to actually, be successful, because you feel this connection. So it's a huge premise in a sales conversation, just to take away that kind of edge, if you will, that naturally happens in our brains that we can't stop.
Yeah.
And the other thing it does is it makes us very personable. It makes us a person rather than a business, rather than, we've all had those spammy things that come through our email or our social media channels. I've got this offer and I think you should look at it. That just seems very, impersonal, like a machine maybe could even make that presentation, right? I'm thinking of AI
Mm-hmm.
as I'm saying that. But when you tell a story, there's a human side to it. There's, there's a tragedy or a trauma. There's something you have to come over. There's humor. There's whatever it is, and it makes you a person. And that also helps the empathy and that whole sales conversation to go that much smoother.
Yeah, I love that because the first step in sales is building rapport. And if the person is in a fight or flight state and they're thinking their initial response, like unconscious, is like, you're a bear and I have to run from you because you want
Right.
something from me, then you can't even get that rapport in there. So
Yes.
I love that you said, and being authentic is so important. I recently learned that authenticity is a highest frequency. It's even a higher frequency than love. So that
Yes.
opens that door for connection. And
Yes.
through story, we can inspire conviction and hope that allows people to see what's possible. So
Yes.
I can't remember what book or what training, it might have been from a network marketing one, but it said, like, as a leader, your job is to help people see what they cannot see. And I
Hmm.
believe through telling stories, we
That's a
can
great
help,
one.
yeah, help take them out of fear and help them see what could be possible for them through story, through something they could relate to.
Yes.
And not feeling like they're being told something wrong with you, here's how you're going to fix it, which is like kind of the old toxic masculine way of selling, which I did
Yes.
recently get sold to like that. And I did tell them, that is toxic masculine, and you telling me I'm bad and wrong doesn't make me want to work with you.
Yes, yes.
Right.
Well,
So
and
yeah.
even, even softening that blow, even if it's not that um sharp around the edges, even if it's just facts, right? That again, it takes us into this kind of like instruction mode. Like you feel like you're being talked at rather
Yeah.
than talked to, right? Facts are sometimes important. Like there are certain personalities who need lots of facts before they make a buying decision, for example.
Mhm.
But just being told a whole series of facts doesn't connect you to that outcome, to that, like you just mentioned, that thing that you can't quite see yet, that leadership that someone else can show you is available. And that can be done through story and through great connection, through conversation.
Love it. And through
Yeah.
that connection and conversation opens up the possibility for you to be able to sell the thing that you're selling, which is great because you came here to serve. And if you don't sell, you can't serve. So we want to take the ickiness out of selling and help you help others see what is possible for them. So they can get
Yes.
outside of their comfort zone and get to the other line, not because we want something from them, but because we're here to help them see the better and next version of them and help them get there. And owning your sales can help you do that. And storytelling is one of the best ways to create that safe connection.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I love it. Let's dive into
Yeah.
tip number 2, asking questions in sales convo. So AKA don't talk at the person. I like it.
Yeah. So again, one of the best things that you can do is find out more about the person that you're speaking to. Um, Tony Robbins is famous for saying, let your prospect dictate your presentation. And that couldn't be more true because let's take an example. You're in a car dealership and you sell Volvo cars and somebody walks in the door to buy a car. So is it a family person who wants the safety of Volvo? Is it a single person who wants like a fast, expensive car that they're going to drive around for their, whatever, real estate business, maybe they want to have like a dependable, but kind of a high-end car. Um, is it someone who's looking for speed or, you know, um, German engineering? Like there's so many different factors that would affect how you sell that car to that person. And any sale is the same way. So when we ask questions in the conversation, we learn about people's values. So we learn how could this help you in your business? What are your goals? What do you do when you're not in business? Like, tell me more about you. If you have that opportunity, not all sales conversations can allow for that, but the more you can find out about the person, the easier time you're going to be able to have to actually cater your sales presentation to them in a way that they will hear. So as I said before, it's not what you say, it's what they receive. And that's one of the biggest parts of asking the questions, finding out, what they think they need, because that's not always what they need. What they think they need, what they value, what would look like success for them. Anything that can give you an indication of how to gear the presentation towards their value set is going to, again, really help dictate the conversation and make that connection that you need. And I want to say here too, because we were talking about this just in terms of the storytelling, but this is, it's all part and parcel of the same thing, but there's kind of been, a movement towards, you really need to have a good relationship. You need to develop relationships to sell. And sometimes people take those relationships too far and they have 15 coffee dates with somebody before they ask them for the sale. So I just want to stress with your audience that relationship building is super important to sales. Relationship building is super important to your business because it's not always necessarily about a sale. It could be a collaboration or a referral or, who knows what, right? You never know where relationships are going to lead. But the idea of understanding the relationship, why you're asking the questions, building a relationship of trust and esteem doesn't mean that you have to spend countless hours building what I would call a fluffy relationship with someone. So I want to really make that clear. Relationships are important, but a lot of people waste a lot of time and don't know how to ask for the sale. So understanding storytelling and understanding the idea of asking questions to speak to their values allows you to make that ask without feeling pushy, without feeling spammy, because you are, as you've said, answering a need they have and helping them, be more successful in their business. If that's what you can do. And again, we're talking as entrepreneurs serving other entrepreneurs, but you could be a car salesman. And if you're going to help someone drive to their job, that, that's also helping people in what you do. So understanding the questioning and the story to make those connections. Relationships are important, but they're not everything. If I can, kind of make that delineation, there's a balance because you still need to be able to ask for the sale if you want to do business.
Yes, absolutely. One of my favorite things to ask people is well, did you ask for the sale?
Yes.
Directly ask. And they're like, no. I'm like, well, how will they know? And really, you do a really good job. They will ask for the sale, but that's because you did exactly what you talked about. You figured out what is their need and you positioned your offer to fulfill their need instead of going in with a predetermined presentation and selling them the offer based on something they don't need or want. Right. So some people come and join us and work in our program because they want to raise more money in their company. And some, they have a non-for-profit. So it's not about the money. It's about the people they can help. So you really do need to figure out the need of the customer. And that happens via questions. And then getting them emotionally connected to that impact of the achievement or not of the achievement. And that will be those emotions really come based on those values that you're talking about. So let's dive into what is answering the need to the value set of the person.
Yeah, so that's where this is a lot of my communication training comes from using a system called Codebreaker Technologies. And it's a full system that you can get engaged with, but it's also just something you can learn as a basic principle. And that's what I want to offer today is trying to figure out what kind of lights the person up that you're speaking to. And so, if you're asking questions about their business, for example, I would say, from having had a couple conversations with you, Heather, I know that you're a very heart-centered entrepreneur. Everything that you do is about service and helping others. And so if I was going to present to you, I would present to you in a manner that speaks to the idea of, if you could do this, you could help more people. Could you see how this could change your community? Could you see how this could, grow your membership so that you could help more people? It would all be about helping. It would all be about serving. Someone else might need an approach where they want kind of like quick action. I want to know that whatever it is that you're giving me can make quick work. I can actually like implement this system, bing, bang, boom. I can go off and I can get like way more sales from this, or this is going to give me prestige. This is going to accelerate my business. So people need a different language there where you need to say, I've got a VIP service for you. I've got a great 3-step system that can get you started, and you're going to see a huge, dramatic rise in your influence. The word influence, as opposed to help, it's a very different word, right? Dictating to a different need that people have. You could also talk to someone who needs a very specific path to follow. So, if you actually work with me, for example, in storytelling, I could give you a course that offers 5 different teaching points. I could then talk to you about what each one of those does, how it's going to help your business, how long it's going to take to do each one, how you could schedule it into your week, things like that. That's where someone needs like a blueprint to follow. They need a step-by-step guide. They need to know what the outcome is going to be and what it is that you can offer. And then there's another personality type that would need all the data. They would need, well, what's, do you have a white paper? Do you have something that you could send me that I could read and mull over the contract before I make the decision to sign? Or do you have referrals from people? So that kind of person often needs to kind of close themselves. They need to get all that data and build that trust by doing the research. And then you're going to make a follow-up appointment with them to say, you know what, I'm going to give you all this information. Have you got everything you need? And continue to ask, have you got everything you need? And then when you know that they've got all of the stuff, they can do their research, they can look things up, and then say, let's book a call, next week. Is that enough time for you to go through this information? And that's when you're going to close the sale at that time, right? So it's all about speaking to how you show up in the world. So you, Heather, are, as I said, very heart-centered. You have love on the wall behind you. I think that is.
It's Ori, OIE, but I have love on my necklace.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Okay, I was just
earring.
thinking that maybe the L was hidden behind the wall of your shelf there, but again, it's pink. You have a plant there. Like those are all things that I can just observe and tell that you're a very caring, heart-centered person, as well as your language. And these are some of the things that you can learn in working with me through learning these communication clues. You and I were talking before the live started, and my dogs were walking through the room. So you can tell that like I care about animals and I'm a dog person. You said lots of your clients have cats. So same kind of thing, right? Just understanding that you care in that way means that it doesn't mean that I'm going to change my presentation. It doesn't mean that I'm going to become a different person, because I'm still who I am. But if you speak in a way of service and care and support and community, teamwork, all of those kinds of things, that's also how you're going to hear. So you need to hear that language in order to invest in what it is that I'm talking about. So I hope that's helpful for the listeners to understand that we can pick up these clues about people by asking these questions and then knowing what it is they need. Do you need to know that I have a university education, or that you need to see my, diploma on the wall behind me? Or do you need to know that I've got a big heart and I care about what you're doing? It's all the difference in how you're going to connect with that person to actually have them hear you in the way that they need to.
Yeah, so it lands in a way that makes sense to them and connects
Yes.
to them in the way that they perceive the world and what's important to them and what they value.
Absolutely.
So customizing the sale to meet the person's needs and values, and do it through connection versus
Yes.
telling.
Yes. And again, if you were doing a presentation to a larger group of people, if you were selling from the stage, or if you were doing a presentation to a board, or maybe a corporate boardroom where there's a bunch of management, everyone's going to have different values in that room. So one of the other things you can do in a presentation when you're not sure is make sure that you touch on all of these different values. So talk about teamwork, talk about strategy and process, talk about research, talk about, accelerating their business, touch on all of those words so that it's actually hitting everybody at some point. So that's kind of another tip. When you're not sure of your audience, make sure you're touching all of those points so that everyone is going to hear you in the way they need to.
Yes, that is so important when we start to learn that people have different representational systems and they use different language and they receive information differently and they speak in different ways. We can make sure that we include it all so that we're getting the entire population and hitting everybody,
Yeah.
which again, in the end, allows you to serve more people and more people's lives to be changed. So knowledge
Yes.
is power. Knowing these things is so incredible. And so you've got some great free gifts that they can connect and click there. Just give them a reason why and what they are.
Yeah, for sure. So the first one is I offer usually around every 6 or 8 weeks a free 5-day social media storytelling challenge. And what that is just to get your brain used to the idea of generating stories from your own life. I was out in a little bit of a rainstorm this morning and my umbrella popped inside out. And so I'm sure I could tell a story about that to connect with somebody on some level, right? There are things that happen to us all the time, and we don't think of how simply we could work those into our business. So the idea of doing this challenge is 5 days of instruction with me live, and then there's 20 days of follow-up. So you get to then kind of start invent and create stories on your own. And the hope is that you're going to get comfortable with the idea of storytelling and start to move that into networking meetings and presentations that you're doing, and maybe even coming up with your signature story that becomes the story that you talk about from stage if you're a stage speaker, right? Or want to become a stage speaker. So it's just the idea of searching around in your everyday life and finding things that are accessible to you. So that I have one starting on Monday, the 15th, I believe it is, of April.
April 15th.
So if you're watching live and you can follow that link and get in, you're on board to do it now. If you're watching this replay later, just click on it because it'll come up somewhere. You're going to hit the next one in May or whatever that's going to come along. But in the meantime, if you can't do that, I've also included what's called the My Bank Code. This is where you get to crack your personality code. Again, it's free. It gives you a free printout that tells you all about how you show up in the world, what your values are, but that's also the first step of understanding the values of other people. And so when you get to see what these sets of values are, it really helps you, even if that's just something that sits beside your desk. And when you're talking to people on a Zoom call, you can be like, oh, that person sounds like they really appreciate a system and a process. So I'm going to make a note of that for when I'm talking to them. So it's just a great way for you to know yourself better and give you a little bit of insight into different value sets and how you could speak to other people to really grow the connections that you make with your audience.
I love it. It's like the magic behind sales you didn't know you needed to know, right? These are two great opportunities for you guys. So practice makes perfect, or practice makes permanent. So if you're practicing wrong, then it makes it permanent. So this is a great opportunity to learn how to tell your story in a way that it lands well, it's received well, and it helps you connect and shorten that sales cycle. Isn't that what we're all looking to do? So you want to make sure you click on those links. And thank you so very much for being on the show today. Was there anything else you wanted to add, or do you have a favorite book recommendation that came to mind?
Oh, we're still thinking of books.
I'm always on the audiobook. So
yeah, well, you know what? I'll tell you a book. It is connected to sales. It's called Tuesdays with Maury. And again, it's a story, but there's such a great meaning behind that. And it's was really impactful for me. It's a very short read, but it shares more about preconceived notions that we have around people. Let's just say that. It's a great read as well.
Which is so important. In NLP, they call it like the listening, or your preconceived notion of how people already see you. So you entered a room and they already have a preconceived notion or listening of you before you've even opened your mouth. So how how that plays a part. Oh, I love it. She's full of so much magic and secret. So let's check that book out too, and make sure you click on the links. It's like the secret sauce behind all the communication and language and sales that just could help you level up. And you don't know what you don't know. And that's why on the Own It show, we are here to help make uncommon knowledge common. So you're going to make sure you want to click on those links and connect with Helen. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you, Heather. It was lots of fun.
Absolutely. So remember, everybody, stay happy, healthy, wealthy. Click on those links, expect magic and miracles. And remember, what's the best that can happen? We'll see you on the next episode. Thank you.